action. And there was no way McClane could know that Hans Gruber was Simon's bro. And that's what made it Die Hard with a vengeance, with Samuel Jackson. And the good cop wouldn't miss this, even though it wasn't Christmas. He didn't get any help from Alan, but only in part 3. We're gonna die hard. We're gonna die hard. We're gonna die hard. We're gonna die as hard as we can. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down to Nakatomi Tower to meet with Holly. He came to get her back and to be her man, but Hans and his buddies fucked up the plan. And that's about when everything went sour at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass. We're gonna die hard. We're gonna die hard. We're gonna die hard. We're gonna die as hard as we can.
Welcome back to Lovecraft Live. It is the Sunday before Labor Day. Ash, you're a little sniffly.
Yeah.
How are you?
I am great. I'm just I'm what's called beginning of year sick for those of you that are parents. I am beginning of year sick. So my kids, just both of them, have coughs and colds. And I mean, it's not COVID. It's just literally a beginning of year cold. And so I've shared before that my children can only sneeze toward my face. So, it's like literally Finn held a sneeze today. He went, and he ran until he could be in front of me to sneeze.
It just, when you can sneeze in mom's face, it makes it better. So,
yeah, just apparently it's like kissing a boo-boo, putting your boogers in my face. It all makes sense. So, but I'm good. I had a good day today. It's been a nice, relaxing weekend so far. So
awesome. Yeah. Aside from getting super drunk at Shappy Hour and passing out on the kitchen floor, which, guys, I don't think the video has been released yet, but I'll put it out on Twitter later this week. But Sarah was kind enough to take a video of me completely passed out with a cup full of water that dogs are drinking out of. We after partied a little too hard on the Shappy Hour, but I'm feeling okay. You're feeling relatively okay. And more importantly, there are people here tonight. We were kind of worried. It's like Sunday, Labor Day weekend. There was an early release to Lovecraft Country. So are people going to show up? But we see all the regulars here. All Might is here. 2 of 4, John, and some new faces too. Blank Nerd, who says you finally get to see us all live. Here we are. So thanks for joining us, and All Might, thanks. This is actually pool hair. I went swimming last night, so it's still highly chlorinated. But
that's so bad for your hair.
It's okay.
Wash it out. Well, you're not blonde. See, it's different. Yeah. Like I have to really watch it because my hair's turned green lots of times. So.
It's
not intentionally.
There's advantages, to each because.
And by the way, it's Black Nerd, not Blank Nerd.
Oh, I'm sorry, Black Nerd. Well, Black Nerd, I'm glad that John gave you a gift subscription, so it could call it back to my attention. I apologize so much for that. But yeah, and Jade Mermaid. I'm going to read all the names so carefully tonight. Jade Mermaid, yes.
Well, hold on. For those of you who are new, you're not used to our setup. So we have multiple screens going. And so like we have to look at one screen to see the person and we have to look at another screen to see what you guys are saying. So it is I mean, that I have horribly mispronounced names before. So we're very sorry, but we're so excited that you're here.
But yes, now that you are a subscriber, we'll get to know you and your name, and we won't forget. John, by the way, just gave a gift subscription. So one of the ways that you can support the stream before we get started here, as we're waiting for the crowd to kind of gather, one way that you can support the podcast, since we make no money doing it, and you can help pay for our costs as far as equipment and storage and also production, is by subscribing. So that is through Twitch Prime. It gives us a little bit. Thank you, John, for doing it again to Jade Mermaid. So what John's doing is actually spending his own money to gift these subs, and that gives us a little bit of money each month per subscriber. What's really cool is you can put it on your credit card, but if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually subscribe through Amazon Prime. It costs you nothing. It's included in your monthly Amazon Prime, and but it does help us out to cover our costs. So we really, really appreciate it. And also, if you want to cheer, which some people have done already, like All Might did, you can do that by using the little bit icon next to your chat box. And those cheers are like little tips for us as well. So we have a lot to cover tonight, though. If you've never joined us for King Mike, there you go. Perfect example of how to cheer. So if you've never joined us before for Lovecraft Live, this is our instant reactions. And also, we want to hear from you. It helps us know what to talk about on the deep dive. So if there's things that you're curious about or things that you would like us to highlight in the deep dive, please let us know. Thank you, Aaron Sun, for the big cheer. We got a hype train going already. That's super exciting. I was about to say it's never happened before, but it's never happened with me around on a Lovecraft
It happened
Live.
when I was here by myself.
Yeah. So
cheers to me.
Yeah, so we are 75% away to a hype train. A hype train is just as you guys support us along the way in a confined amount of time. We get a hype train going. It unlocks emotes. It's very, very exciting. But Ash, so tons to cover tonight, and then if of course. What we covered tonight will go into the deep dive, which comes out on Wednesday. So we'll be recording that tomorrow after we get a chance to see it. Now, Ash and I didn't watch the episode until today, but a lot of people watched it, when it was early released, I believe on Thursday. So some people have had time to watch it multiple times with, mixed reactions. And 2 of 4 is getting to one of my points immediately. But Ash, this is one of the rare times where we would just speak, off the cuff about what we thought of the episode. So to clarify, when we do the deep dive, you might notice that we don't inject a lot of our own opinions in there. That's because we reserve that really for Lovecraft Live. The deep dive, we really want to get into the explanation, the education part of it. So this is more the actual opinion episode. So our feelings are fresh. We just watched it. So Ash, we'll start with you. Like, how'd you feel about this episode overall?
I thought it was a step back from last week. Last week's episode, I loved the pacing of it. I loved the storyline. I loved Letitia, the fact that it was Letitia centric. I loved the parts of this episode that weren't the National Treasure hunt.
Yes.
Or the Da Vinci Code treasure hunt. I loved the stuff with Ruby. She is a motherfucking sexy lady, man. I mean, I would take her home any day. Like, and that sparkle number that she had on, she is sexy and I love her. And when she looked at that crowd and she's like, well, fuck you too, when nobody clapped for her. Like serious crush on her. And I also love this stuff with Hippolyta too. I thought all of that was really interesting. I was not a fan at all of the Da Vinci Code takes Lovecraft Live. Not Lovecraft Live, that's us. Lovecraft Country. And I want to be very clear about my problem with it. I have 2 issues. Well, actually, I have 3. My first issue is that I feel like we stepped back into too fast of pacing like we had in the first 2 episodes. It just went so quick. And part of what's fun about a movie like National Treasure, which I think is actually a really delightful film, or, the Da Vinci Code, I understand the draw of a story like that because you can you can get involved with it. It's all about trying to figure out the puzzle, alongside the author or alongside the characters in the movie. And they just didn't let that breathe. I mean, they're sitting there pressing all of those, icons, trying to get when the walk the plank is dissolving. And we don't even get to see the icons. Like, we had no chance to experience it. And it was all just a little too convenient. Turn off your flashlights because the moon is going to shine on the alligator eye, or, hey, some dude's arm was cut off, so let me stick my arm in here with this gaudy ass ring because that means I'm gonna, open this. I just really didn't enjoy that. And then the final thing, and I'm not alone in this, I'm not stealing anybody's ideas. This was a big thing that a lot of critics had a problem with, and I am repeating their opinion because I very much agree with it. I also thought it was highly inappropriate the way that they killed this indigenous character that came on who was clearly trans, and the fact that you're introducing this trans character and then you're going to brutally have them. I mean, first of all, they misgender them in the episode, and then you're going to brutally murder them, 30 seconds later. I had a really huge problem with that and thought it was super, I don't want to say offensive, but I thought it was super inappropriate.
Yeah, sometimes I think what's awful for the audience might be great for the podcast, as awful as it sounds, but this is a great topic to discuss because there's a lot of ways to look at it. And I saw significance to how they did it, in the sense that I don't think it was necessarily a misstep to the show, but rather they were actually trying to illustrate something about the way they treated the character. And it's something we'll hopefully get into the deep dive. But Ash, I agree with you that this was a really strange episode because the action itself, like as you saw in the previews, as everybody was talking about before this episode was released, was like, it's very Indiana Jones, it's very Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's very National Treasure, it's kind of Goonies almost, like, and people were excited about that. And I agree with you. I thought that was the part of the episode that really fell short. It wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't interesting. It was just kind of there. But on the flip side, you had all these really juicy moments that were not highlighted and actually worked really, really well for me. And like you mentioned, it was with characters that don't normally get the spotlight. So who were like the big stars of this episode? I think at one point, Letitia even says to Atticus, like, the universe doesn't fucking revolve around you. And I was like, I felt like that was, really speaking directly to the audience in the sense that Montrose got some great scenes here. Letitia did as well, but Ruby, I agree. Like, there was a sexuality there. There was a power there. There was a really learning about her character and how she behaves. And I found myself much more attached to her as a character, much more interested in what was going on with her than any of the shit that was going on underground.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we've got some people talking about how some of it was from the book. I mean, we read the book. Like, I know which parts are from the book, but it's still the parts that weren't from the book. And even like the way they changed it up with Hippolyta, even the fact that Ruby didn't meet, this individual before the party. Instead, she met, him at the bar. Like, I thought those changes were fine. It was the treasure hunt that I think just like really, really, really fell short. Now, I did really enjoy the reveal of obviously Montrose is a queer character. Obviously he, that was our big reveal that we got, which I think does add additional dimension and complexity to both his character and his relationship with Tick, and his relationship with George and his wife, right? Like, I think all of that, I think, became a lot more complex, and I didn't mind that piece of it, but I don't know. I mean, the Ruby sex scene was worth it. And also, I love a woman that rips open a dude's shirt and sees a demonic symbol burned on his skin. And you're like, done. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Like, Ruby and I are seriously in sync about that. And I thought that was really, I thought it was a really great scene. And I think that they're setting it up, knowing what happens in the book. I mean, they're setting all of this up for Ruby really, really well. And I'm excited about seeing her character be explored extensively next week. But, and then how the fuck did they end up back in Chicago? Like, and she knew that was one of her. I mean, he's bloated and dead for days. I was like, that looks like one of my neighbors. Like, really? Like, I mean, it was just all just so convenient and just kind of a letdown,
Yeah, and I think that, thank you. Thank you for the donation there. Yeah, so the thing is I think what we're getting here is a show that's really split, right? In the sense that they're doing some big, daring things, and at the same time, they're trying to keep it entertaining at the same time. And King B, as we were texting before this episode of Lovecraft Live, cool, hype train success. Thanks, guys. But the, as we were talking before this, he was like, it's a show that's trying to do too many things and not necessarily succeeding at a lot of them. But there were some points that I really wanted to kind of cling on to is that there was a lot of points where I was like, why did they change this from the book? And I know, guys, when we did the preview episode, I had to talk with Patrick on Twitter about this too. Like, that we said we're not going to talk about this is different from the book, or this is like the book. But sometimes if people in the audience are talking about it, which clearly, Jade Mermaid is, we should really talk about at least our own reactions, and then why maybe the show is not necessarily going in the wrong direction. So they changed a lot of stuff from the book. And I find myself asking, like, why would you change that? Why would you put the museum in Boston and not Chicago? Why would you have certain characters doing actions that other characters did before? And instead of kind of resisting that and going, this isn't the way the book did it, I started going, okay, well, why did they change it that way? And I think it revealed to me a lot of things about this episode. And one of those things is they wanted to make the museum. So in the book, the museum is just a setting for a caper, right? It's not a character, really. In this episode, I feel like, and that's what I want to focus on in the deep dive, is why the museum and what does it say about looting and about who our heroes are and who, the exploited are, right? So kind of looking at it from the sense of like, in the book, they were just there to snag the book. Here, it's like they're here not only to snag the book, but there is a message about the museum and what it does with people. The way I looked at it was, you go into the museum exhibit and what do you see? It's all like Titus Braithwaite, he did this and he was so great and he got all these artifacts and he helped, he tamed the natives, whatever. A 1955 view of what this like white explorer did, or this, this white man did. And then what do you see below ground is all the horrors, right? Below ground, you see all the stuff locked away. And that's why they chose that setting of the galley with all the, the Aboriginals who were basically imprisoned there for eternity, right? And the horror of that. So if you look at it from that perspective, then it's like, yes, there is a powerful message here. Again, the thing I keep saying about the show is, was it executed well? I don't think so. But the messaging is very deep and very complex.
It is. One of the critics that I like most of all writes for Vulture, and I apologize for not remembering their name right now, but they are covering Lovecraft for Vulture. And if you want other commentary to read, I mean, I would highly recommend their episode recaps because I think they're really well researched and well done. But they were talking about at the end of their review this week, they said, I have resigned myself basically to not liking the show, but liking the things that the show is attempting to do. And so this is not going to be a show that I look back on and go, wow, I really liked this 10 episode product, but I appreciate these things that they're doing in every episode. And I think I'm there for that too. I mean, I think a lot of the things that they're doing are successful. Where I get frustrated is that you've got such great moments and it just feels like sloppy storyboarding, right? Like some disconnect that happens between writing and production, that there's something that happens where that breakdown where they're just trying so much. I feel like there was nobody there to go, okay, let's edit this back and let's figure out how we can make, the most affecting message, I guess. And I feel like that gets lost because there are these beautiful moments that are happening in the show that are not gender bending, that are genre bending and that are really interesting. And I'm here for that every week. And I was so glad, y'all, that there was no shitty CGI this week. Like that made me so happy that we didn't have Snake Dick, we didn't have Ghost Baby Head, we didn't have vampire tremor babies. Like, it was just like a straight episode because the CGI looked fine. I thought and I even thought the transition, of the corpse to full form was kind of cool. Like when their ass appeared, like I was like, oh, there's a real ass. Like, I thought that worked really well. So I thought that was neat. But I don't know. I think, a lot of people are talking about William and Christina. So let's address that because I think that that's another big moment. Obviously William and Christina are the same person. I mean, I think that that's pretty clear. I mean, once we saw the emblem, on his chest, and we know that Christina has a mark of protection. I mean, sure, she could have given it to William, but I mean, the likelihood, because we're not seeing them in the same room, the likelihood is that William is Christina. And what I find to be a huge bummer, guys, is that William is a much better actor than Christina is. I mean, he's fantastic. And I know he looks like a bargain bin Alexander Skarsgård. I mean, every time I see him, he looks like his uglier younger brother, kind of like Ashley Hemsworth, to his older brothers or his younger brothers, the other Hemsworths. because he's not as pretty as, Chris. But he is a great actor, and he was fantastic in the scenes that he was in. And I hate that he's so much better than Christina, because what a fun role, she's getting to play. But I think that that's pretty clear. And I'm anxious to see how this begins to work with the seduction, both literal and figurative, that he's creating, with Ruby, and how that's going to transition, and especially how that's going to complicate her relationship with Letitia. I'm excited to see all of those actors, you know, really play that out. I think that'll be really cool. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just Do I love the show? No, I don't. If I'm going to say very honestly, I don't love the show. I think that it's a mediocre show, but I think it's got very above average moments in every episode. And can we talk about the music? What was your reaction to the music change this week?
I didn't have a particular reaction to it. What I was trying to figure out was like when Christina was driving along and she had like Rihanna playing, like, was she actually listening to Rihanna? Because it looked like she was like bopping along to it. And I was like, what's fucking going on here? But I did feel like if it was trying to express anything, it was really like whose world we were in. And that part I kind of enjoyed. But you know what? I have problems with like Peaky Blinders as well, where it's like if the music is like highly anachronistic, I'm kind of put off by it. Mm-hmm. But again, I always have to temper that with the fact that like I don't think I'm the target audience for the show, right? And to clarify, it's not that I don't like Rihanna. I fucking love Rihanna. It's just that it was kind of like it felt it was like, you get excited about it. It's uplifting, but you're also like, does it make sense for the episode? I don't particularly know.
I mean, I love the modern music switch up. Like, I don't have a problem with that, but come on. Like, could you have picked a more obvious song to play with the rich Christina driving with Bitch Better Have My Money? Like, I mean, I thought that was kind of ridiculous. I thought the song that worked the best this week was Marilyn Manson's song with Ruby. I love, but of course, I'm a huge Marilyn Manson fan. So Manson and I go way back.
Yeah, the thing with the Manson thing though is it was Manson singing "Screaming Jay Hawkins," and you're like,
yeah, but I don't know.
And also every time they're like white magic, they're like, or not white magic, but magic from white people. It's like Marilyn Manson. They roll Marilyn Manson out. Plus with all the issues with Marilyn Manson and Evan Rachel Wood, I'm just kind of not a Manson fan. So
whatever. I mean, we can have that argument a whole nother day.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm a huge Manson fan and loved him as a teenager, and still I think he's an absolutely brilliant man. But I really enjoyed that. The Rihanna I didn't think was quite, and I fucking love that song, but like I didn't feel it was quite as successful. And we missed our voiceover this week.
We didn't though.
Which one?
There's one right at the beginning about the Cold War that Montrose is listening to.
That's true. I need to go back and re-listen to that, because then it devolves into his conversations he's had.
Yeah, but there's still voiceover. I was like on voiceover watch. We had a couple questions.
I'll have to go back and listen.
We had a couple questions in the chat a couple minutes ago, so I wanted to get to those. One is King B is in the chat, so everybody, if you have questions for the King B, you can address them directly in chat. Also, the title of the episode. So, a history of violence. So the episode title refers to two things. One is the violence exacted upon minorities, particularly Black people, and then also the violence that they in turn exact upon others, right? So the history of violence is kind of how violence for any minority, but in this case, people of color, goes both ways, right? And you see that term, the BIPOC, right? So that's Black and Indigenous people of color. I thought it was very interesting in this episode. They brought in Indigenous people into the episode to show a chain there as well. Another question that came up was about was it a man or a woman? Was it intersex, transsexual? So that's a two-spirit. So this is something with Aboriginal people in particular that is like a third gender. Often used, like they're often seen as an other, but much more accepted than you would think of like in American society, right? So it was like
also like seriously, and in a lot of those cultures are really spiritually like prioritized. Like they're a higher level of being, like they're recognized to be like the highest level of consciousness. They're worshipped in some cultures.
Yep.
So, I mean, and I'm calling them trans. I mean, I think the show's trying to make a point here. I mean, they're making these subtle mentions to the trans community. And I mean, that's one of the things I want to talk about on the deep dive is that storyline and the choice of Misha Green and the showrunners to have them violently murdered by the end of the episode. I think that that's going to be one of the things that I want to look into because I mean, if you go online and read like what people are talking about, I mean, that has really it's really if they intended something different, I'm sure somebody from the show is going to speak out on it because enough people are pissed about it that I think they're going to have to respond to it in some way. And so I'm just curious to look into that and the connection with like these indigenous cultures and the story that we're telling here because like you said the other, right? We've got another other here because we've looked at gender, we've looked at race, we've looked at religion even. And so now we've got something else. And I think that's interesting. And Black Nerd, that character isn't in the book. That character doesn't exist in the book.
Yeah. So I think as a key thing to again identify is like we might not like again, we're trying to limit the book references as much as possible, but this episode is way off the rails as far as the book goes. Like, entire characters have been omitted, settings have been changed. Like the method
circumstances,
the method of finding the vault is different. Whose vault it is different. Now you've got and then also one thing that they referenced in this episode that I think that keys us up into what's going to happen in future episodes is they talked about how Horatio Winthrop had a time machine. So this is again a different concept that's been introduced, and so now it seems that Titus had a vault, Horatio had a time machine. So it's it's a bit different than what we saw in the book. But again, I think that all this is intentional in the sense that it wasn't just like they just decided to do things. They're probably trying to limit the amount of characters in the show, but also like talk about some issues that weren't addressed in the book, and I think that's perfectly okay.
Oh, it is, especially when you consider the book is written by a white man and the show appropriately is being made by, an entire group of people of color, other than J.J. Abrams. I mean, I think absolutely they should, should be addressing and expanding, right? What the themology of what they're doing in the book. And I think that it's a good thing. It's just some is working and some isn't, right? And I think that's to be expected. And guys, please know we never go into a show and be like, we expect this show to be perfect. We expect this to be the most amazing viewing experience of all time. Like we're not disappointed in not liking something, or we're not disappointed in it being imperfect. I mean, we're here to analyze and discuss with you guys more than to critique. So it's okay that it's not perfect. It's just interesting to see how it's really working sometimes and how others it's really not. And I'm very curious to see if that pattern, I'm hoping they find their footing in the latter half of the season.
Yeah, two things for me. One is if there was a scorecard and it said how effective is this show at bringing up topics that are worth discussing, I would say it's like a 9 out of 10, right? But if it's like how entertaining is the show, that's a different story, right? And so I think that's something that has to be balanced. And when you look at the value of a show, just like a book or any other piece of work, it's like, okay, what are they trying to accomplish here? And so I think that the show might actually be saying, hey, listen, let's give people as much to talk about as humanly possible. And in that case, I was like, as I was watching it, I was like, there's an interesting topic. There's an interesting topic. And as we go down the line. Now, Steve had just joined the chat and he said he loved the episode. So I'd be interested to see what did you love about it, Steve? The other thing I wanted to talk about is people saying it's unfair to introduce a character and then just kill them off. Listen, we have to separate whether we liked something a show did and whether the show did it on purpose. Shows, I encourage TV shows to do upsetting things. I think that's okay. Like, upset me. Give me a reason why you upset me. But everybody knew the second that Montrose shut that door what was coming next, right? And so it's really a question of the show might be saying, look, here's a new character, a new possibility. You gave us a little bit of background that she was turned into, or that they were turned into a siren by a spell, that they've been locked away forever, and they come into the new world, and you're like, wow. I remember when they were going up the elevator, I was like, holy shit, we got a new character that's like kind of an exciting thing here. Like, what's it going to be about? And then Montrose kills that character off. And it's like, what if the message here is that the severity of Montrose's desire to protect his family is that the show, as Montrose is willing to kill off an entire storyline because fuck that, I'm keeping my family safe. Make no mistake here, Montrose is not along for the ride. Like, he's not part of this adventure. He's there to keep Tick safe and his family safe at all, at all costs. And when he realizes that he can't stop them from going, he's like, well, fuck, I got to go along, but he might be a saboteur throughout the story.
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree with you that I think shows should do upsetting things. I think it's just very irresponsible to introduce a character like this that so often experiences insane violence in television and in pop culture. I mean, there's this belief, right, that like pop culture it teaches us how to treat groups, right? And so if you watch Hollywood, which has been incredibly whitewashed since it came into existence, it taught us how to treat different groups of people of color, all of that. And so there's this belief that like with shows like Pose and other shows that are introducing like rich storyline for the trans community, where they experience violence from time to time but on their own terms and in their own storylines, I think that is helping to change how we treat certain groups. And I just think it's upsetting and potentially irresponsible for a show like this to choose that to be the upsetting thing that they do, that they kill off a character that so often in pop culture already is so violently killed off again and again. And I don't know. And maybe it will be useful, maybe it will be you know oh, and it looks like Gilly Laugh said the same thing that I just said. I think that I don't know. That's why I want to look into it, right? I may completely change my mind. I mean, I was gonna watch the show this morning and it just didn't work out. So I watched it like 7 o'clock. So like, I've only seen it like an hour and a half ago. So I'm interested to watch it again and dig into other people's opinions and not my own, and what that does for the storyline, and also what this indigenous people storyline has to do to attribute to, because it was very clever, the whole like he was in the shipping industry, which is code for he was a slave trader. He would go and and explore and teach indigenous peoples. He would go in and he would colonize, right? Like, I mean, it was all these really clever code words that we use in our own society to mitigate the violence, that history of violence that you know the white people that ruled this country expanded to the entire world. And so I thought all of that was really clever. I'll be very honest, it put a really sour that part of the episode put a pretty sour taste in my mouth. But write in, guys, at host@shadowontv.com and tell us your opinions, or give us a call at
914-719-SHAT.
914-719-SHAT. One day I will remember it. And let us know what you think, not just about that, but about the episode in general. Because I think that there's a lot, like Gene was saying, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of really interesting topics, I think, to unpack there. So.
All right, so that brings us to the close of Lovecraft Live. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Labor Day weekend. Hope you guys all have a safe Labor Day. Try to stay the fuck at home. If you don't stay the fuck at home, stay distance, wear a mask, wash your hands. We will be back with the Lovecraft Live deep dive on Wednesday. So we'll be recording that tomorrow and getting that out for you, covering these topics. And again, we have email already coming in. We have some voicemail coming in, but as Ash mentioned, host@shadowontv.com to write in. And you can also shoot us a voicemail at 914-719-SHAT. We're happy to share those on the deep dive. And then, of course, if it doesn't make the deep dive, we might also save it for Shappy Hour, which is our Friday cocktail party. We'll be doing that with Moscow Mules coming up this Friday, so we can discuss it there as well. But thank you so much to everyone who's written in, who's called in, who's supporting the podcast in various ways, and thanks for joining us live. I know that Twitch is kind of a new tech for a lot of people, but it is a great way for us to interact with you, and it's a little more it's a little more interactive than doing our normal Instacast. But if you guys have anything else that we didn't cover, please write in and do share their opinions on all the topics we just covered, because we'd love to hear from you. I think that's about it. So Ash, I'll see you tomorrow night to record, and then we'll have this up for you guys on Wednesday. Also, shit, almost forgot. Shat the Movies, our episode of Young Guns will be out on Tuesday.
Yes.
Big D is finishing up the edit there.
Regulator.
And it's a fucking great one. So do stay tuned for that. And currently out right now, if you want something to listen to while you're traveling tomorrow, we do have our Fear and Loathing episode out, which I just listened to for the second time, and it gets funnier each time. So do check that out as well. That's all at shatthemovies.com. Okay, thanks, guys. Yeah, it's fun nerding out with all of you. And Kim, if you want to know about how to get two people on stream together, shoot me an email, host@shatontv.com, and I will or join us in the Discord, and I can tell you all about it. I'll send you the Discord link here. Cool. Yep. All right, guys. And yeah, if you missed any part of this, you can rewatch it on Twitch. It'll be available immediately, and then you can watch all our past episodes on YouTube as well. Ash, it's been great.
Guys.
Take care of your husband. Take care of your kids. Take care of yourself.
Jesus. Okay.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
All
right. See you guys. Oh no. Just kidding. Okay, now.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower to meet with Holly. He came to get her back and to be her man, but Hans and his buddies fucked up the plan, and that's about when everything went sour at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it